Okay, cool. It's people from all of British Columbia.
Hello. Hello, everybody. So glad to see you all. Happy Sunday of Labor Day weekend. Always nice to have a Sunday when you know the next day is also a weekend day. That's like, one of the best feelings. I'm so glad to see all of you here today. Welcome to today's edition, as Arne loves to say, of the Daily Antidote of Song. I'm so super glad so many folks came out for today's marvelousness. We are in September, our new Friends Month. Singing every day with a new song leader who we've never sung with before doesn't mean we don't know them, and that coming up soon. I want to say hello to everybody out there on Facebook Live. Help me say hi, guys. Thanks so much for coming today to the Daily Antidote Song. It looks like today is day number 882. Thank you to Christiana and to Carolyn, both of you for reminding me of my day. Such a great help. Thank you so much to Aaron Geyer for being here from Brooklyn, New York today, running the tech. And let's say hello to everybody in the room. So hello to Graham and Barbara Dean. You might recognize their faces. They're regular attendees in the room. We've heard from them during cocktail parties and open mic nights, chit-chatting. And today they are our song leaders. So excited to be able to share their music and kind of what they're up to in the world with you today. So all right, who do we have? Hi, Arlene in California. Nice to see you. And hi, Pauline in Newcastle, UK. Glad you're here. And hope William is next to you, who is not Willard. Hello to Sarah in Texas. Great to see you today. Glad you're here. Nice smile. Hi, Ruth in Birmingham. Lovely red. It really is very pretty. Hello to Sheila in Florida. Glad to see you today. Nice background. Hi, Becky in Vancouver. Great to see you. Hello to Christiana and Bob in Rockville. Christiana looks like she is totally ready to play along. Or what is, yeah, great. Oh, good. Hello to Annette in California. Glad to see you. And hello to Luda in Victoria. Very glad to see you too. Hi to Carolyn in Boise, Idaho. And the Curly Tops in Vermont. It's half a curly top head. Anyway, there he is. Hi, Willard. Good to see you. Hi, Bonnie in Idaho. Nice to see you. Hello, Renata. Coming in from Wisconsin, Michigan, Wisconsin. And I have to say, yesterday, Renata was with us again for the first time in a while. She has Polish heritage. She was here just by chance for our Polish singer. And by the way, she then told her sister about it, who came in from Poland while we were singing and listened to the song, which I thought was so completely cool. Thank you, Renata, for being here. Hi, Martha in Oregon. Great to see you. Hello, Bronwyn in Victoria. Glad to have you with us today. Hello to Susan Miller in Seattle. Nice to see you, Susan. Jim Harkless is in the house. Hello, sweet. It's coming in from Maryland. And boy, do I miss seeing you, Jim. Hello to Susan in Ohio. Hello to Louisa. Nice to have you with us today. And I'm not sure if you're new, but I'm glad you're here. Hello to Storm in Massachusetts, Aloysius in Massachusetts, Deli in Maryland. And I usually wait to the end to take a breath, but we're going to have to do it now. 1, 2, 3. Yes, I always do love to say it. It's a good thing I was raised in New Jersey. Hello to Carolyn, or Carol in Connecticut. Nice to see you today. And we've been working with Carol on something we're going to be releasing soon. Super exciting. Hello to Kathy in Virginia. Glad to see you. And what a lovely smile you've got for us today. Hello to Nancy's Irish cow in Washington State. Smiling differently today. Do you see that the cow is kind of smirking a little bit or something? Plus sending love. Hi to Anne in Maryland. Nice to see you. Ralph in Victoria with potentially Penny's fingers right over there in the background. Hello to Annette. Oh, I said Annette. And Gloria in Minnesota is here. Oh, she's not connected to audio, but it's really nice to see Gloria. We haven't had her here in a while. Hello to Lynn in Connecticut, Caroline in DC, Sandy in Western North Carolina, Jenny in Suffolk, Amanda and Miles in Michigan, Michelle, and hopefully everybody else will get their audio connected and we can say goodbye to them on the goodbye end. Let's take another breath. Hi, everybody. I'm so glad you're here. So Graham and Barbara Dean started coming in the very first year of our daily antidoting, singing along, just attending the same way lots of you do. And then over the course of time, I got to know Barbara a little bit better, and then Graham, and then got to hear a little bit of what they're up to. And when we have the discussion, we're going to talk even more about what they're up to, because there's something very particular they're up to that I want to share with you. So Graham and Barbara Dean, they are from WBCUR.
No, WBCR.
WBCR. Oh yeah, why did I put a U in there? WBCR Radio in the Berkshires, amongst many other things that they do. Let's welcome Graham and Barbara to our room today to share a song with us in New Friends Week. So glad you're here.
We're really glad to be here too. It's really exciting after being in the audience for all these years to be presenting a song ourselves, and among such an illustrious group of performers that you've had here. Quite amazing. This whole antidote, the daily antidote thing is amazing and very unique.
And I would like to take a moment to say hello to my fellow Brits.
Yeah,
At least two of them I saw there.
yeah, Newcastle and Birmingham.
Yeah, guys, I'm from Derbyshire, so it's great to see you.
It really is.
That's awesome. Yeah, I just saw a lot of excitement from the UK crowd over there. That's really fun. So I'm super glad you're here. I can't wait to hear your song. You want to tell us a tiny bit about it and then teach us the chorus?
Sure. So, being that this is Labor Day weekend, we wanted to do a song having to do with labor, the labor movement. And we know quite a few, and we've written some as well. But here's one that's very special to us because it's about Frances Perkins, who was FDR's labor secretary for the whole of his being in the White House, 12 years. She was the first woman in the cabinet. And she was quite an amazing woman. Maybe we can talk a bit more about her later. The song tells, in a small way, parts of her life and how she got to be in that position.
Yeah.
But we were excited to meet her grandson at their family home in Newcastle, Maine, and go into the home and just get to know a little bit more about them. So this is a song that we wrote, wrote most of it, a few years ago. It's called Here's to Frances Perkins. And yes, we'll start with the chorus so you can hear that, and then we'll go on to the song.
So here's to Frances Perkins, standing tall among the men. We may never see the likes of her again. Once more. Here's to Frances Perkins, standing tall among the men. We may never see the likes of her again.
So that comes several times throughout the song, as most choruses do. So,
Right.
so please do join in.
It was the Great Depression, a letter was sent to Frances Perkins to join the government. She gave Roosevelt a list of things she wanted done. He agreed, and the seeds of the New Deal were sown. So here's to Frances Perkins, standing tall among the men. We may never see the likes of her again. At the Triangle Factory fire, she watched women leave, saw their crumpled bodies lying broken in the street. She knew that this injustice must be addressed. She worked to change the laws to protect the dispossessed. So here's to Frances Perkins, standing tall among the men. We may never see the likes of her again. First woman in the cabinet, she made history. She blazed a trail, left an enduring legacy. Unemployment insurance, social security, fair labor standards, she fought for you and me. So here's to Frances Perkins, standing tall among the men. We may never see the likes of her again. Now we've been living through another catastrophe, with long food bank lines, millions in misery. Though troubles may surround us, we will find a way. Frances, how your light still shines on us today. So here's to Frances Perkins, standing tall among the men. We may never see the likes of her again. So thank you, Frances Perkins, steadfast to the end. You will be remembered as the workers' friend. You will be remembered as the workers' friend.
Woo! Thank you so much, Graham and Barbara. Wait, hang on 1 second. Let's highlight just Graham and Barbara so we can see what they're holding up, if you don't mind, Aaron. Thank you.
So this is our favorite picture of Frances Perkins. I'm sure she was in some government office working and did not see the amazing light coming onto her from the sun there. I'm sure she saw it later because there are many pictures made of this, but it's quite, an amazing picture of her.
That
Kind of speaks to who she was, I think.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. It's sort of like heaven shining the light from above on somebody who deserves to be in the spotlight. So that's pretty neat. I wanted to say a couple things before we get started chatting. I want to welcome some of the folks who came in late, Dawn and Anita and Hoda. So glad you're back in the room with us, Hoda. We've missed you a lot and we hope you're feeling well. Linda and Janice all joined afterwards. But also I want to say that the University of Daily Antidote, again, throwing it in the chat for all of us. Jim Harkless put in the chat that he thinks there's a building in DC, and he says specifically which one, but I've already lost it in the chat, that is named after her. And it sounds like you guys already know. Can you tell us?
Department of Labor. They named the Department of Labor
Yes.
after her.
Well,
Finally.
they built a new Department of Labor building in the 60s and 70s, and I believe around 1980. It didn't have a name. It was just called something like the New Labor Building. And around 1980, I believe, it was named after her. Yes.
Well named.
That's great. Why don't you, it was funny during the sound check when we were talking about what we were going to talk about. It was one of those days, they don't always happen. We were like, we talk about this and this and this and this. And each thing was like 10 more things we could talk about. Why don't we start with, tell us a little bit about Frances and the song in whatever ways you like.
Sure. Well, we vacation in Maine quite a lot, almost every year recently, and we were walking down our favorite little town, Damariscotta in Maine. It's mid-coast Maine, and all of a sudden we saw Frances Perkins Center, and we couldn't believe our eyes because we knew something about her, but we didn't know a lot at that point. So we went in, found out more about her, and found out that her family home, which was her grandparents' home, which they left to her, was in Newcastle, Maine, which is close. It's called the Brick House, and that is now a National Historic Place. It's gotten that designation. And they used to, before the pandemic, they had 3 times a year, they would have open houses. The one in August was also a gala where they would honor 3 people who were working in the social justice field. They've had Jane Mayer, Robert Reich, Elizabeth Warren, and last year Heather Cox Richardson, and this year the main one is Dr. Reverend William Barber, who's done amazing work.
Yeah.
And there's always 2 other people.
And this year it will be virtual.
So anybody can join. Just go to the Frances Perkins Center online and find that. So we got to know her grandson, Tomlin Coggeshall, her only grandson, He and his partner were living there at the time. They've since moved, and it's now really the National Historic
Yeah,
uh,
there
building.
is a foundation which bought the building, and they're right now working on renovations. And at some point in the near future, I hope it will be opened as a place people can visit, as a museum to Frances Perkins. But
That's
She
amazing.
was a graduate of Mount Holyoke College in Massachusetts in 1902, and she was basically involved in social work. And she worked in settlement houses like Hull House with Jane Addams.
yeah, that's in Chicago.
Right. But that's how she became known in that field, and eventually ended up working for FDR when he was governor of New York. And I think she was something like his labor secretary
She
at
was
that
the
point.
industrial.
Right. Like different names.
He knew her, and this is an interesting point to me in um, him asking her to join the government because he already knew who she was, and they'd worked closely together. In fact, she had risen to become one of the three industrial commissioners in New York State, and the first woman ever to hold that position. So she was very involved already uh, in improving working conditions for people in New York State. So that when came to the point where FDR asked her to be his labor secretary, and as I say in the first verse of the song, she literally did give him a list of things that she wanted. And she said, basically, if you'll do these things, I'll take the position. And it was, the 8 hour day, minimum wage, unemployment, social security.
Getting rid of child labor.
Yeah, getting rid of even health insurance. That's the one thing that they
They never got to.
they never got to actually put into practice. But it was a whole list of these things, which at the time were radical and revolutionary.
Yeah.
So FDR gets the credit for the New Deal. Frances Perkins is kind of not in there very much, but I do have to think that he knew what he was getting when he asked
Oh,
her
he
to
did.
take the job, and that on some level he wanted all this.
Oh yeah, he really did.
So
He told her, "Tell me what you
yeah,
want." So he was on board, but she was really the woman behind the New Deal, and there's a book about her called exactly that. It's
That is just amazing. Thank you.
so she was there for the whole 12. There was two members of the cabinet that remained for his entire administration. The other one was Harold
who
Ickes,
was a good friend of FDR's.
but they were the only two that were there for his entire presidency. Yeah.
Wow. So I love the lesson, the woman's history lesson, and what I'm thinking is like how many folk songs we've had in this room that have done that, like taught us some kind of a lesson about a figure in history who has disappeared or who hasn't gotten the enough spotlight, or an issue that's disappeared and hasn't gotten enough spotlight. And this song, actually, I was thinking I should throw out a challenge to you guys. Now you have to write another song about a woman from history before Women's History Month, so I can have you back to sing another song, unless you might already have one. Who knows?
Probably.
Um, I do. I was going to say, we just had Tim Erickson in here last week. I think it was last week, and he brought us a song about the Granite Mills fire, and your song mentions the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, and how after we had that song in here, it wasn't something I knew about, so I went and I Googled it, and I read the Wikipedia entry, I Googled the Granite Mills, which then after reading that Wikipedia entry, it led me to the Triangle Shirtwaist. So it was already on my mind this week, something that I hadn't known, might have learned about it at some point along the way, but had, promptly forgotten in some. So bringing it back up again and then having your song also point to it in the same week, I thought was just fabulous. And it does open up a space in a discussion to talk about things like labor, things like people who are in a position of power and who use their power in some way or another. So I was saying to Graham and Barbara during the sound check that at least what I think I read in the Wikipedia about the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory was that the owners, I could be mixing the two up, but the owners actually had 8 previous counts of arson or something. And so was it arson or wasn't it arson? And then the notion of people in power not taking care of the people who they employ or who they can help, right? And it even drew us to talk about the situation right now in Jackson, Mississippi, with the water that's been for so long not been on anybody's. Yeah, go ahead. You guys talk.
Well, first of all, I'd just say that incident, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, was a pivotal moment in Frances Perkins' life. She was nearby at the time at
Having a cup of
having
tea.
tea with some fancy ladies or something. I don't remember exactly. And heard what was happening, and she went down there and she
And they
witnessed
watched.
this.
I can't even
And
imagine that,
and
watching people leap from,
yeah,
because the ladders from the fire trucks were not tall enough to reach them, and they tried to put those things where you're supposed to catch people, but of course, when they leaped from such a high height, they fell right through them.
yeah,
So they all died. All the
yeah.
people who jumped.
And of course, what you were pointing to and what you were just saying is how basically people in power don't care. These were all immigrant women. There were
Some
actually
men,
some men,
some men.
maybe a dozen men, but on the whole, it was immigrant women and young immigrant women living on the Lower East Side of New York.
Jewish and Italian and a
Yeah.
few other ethnicities as well.
So they were dispensable,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
except Francis.
So the powerless, or the folks who don't get the care that they need from the people who are supposed to deliver the care that they need, right? So their bosses in that case, or the people in Jackson, Mississippi, who are in charge of the water and who had all the notice long in advance, or we sort of spoke about just briefly, and I'll throw this back at you guys too. Like, in a way, we are in a time where all of the attention to racial injustice and to labor and to other things makes you feel like, oh, there's a lot of hope, right? Of people taking the responsibility for the people who don't have a voice or who don't have the power. But at the exact same time, we're seeing, I think, exactly the opposite also happening in our culture at the same time, where we see people being either dehumanized or that divide that makes us not see each other as people sometimes. Or yeah, so I'm throwing that back to you.
Here's something. Go back to the Triangle Shirtwaist fire. The owners were not punished in any way.
Not
In
really.
fact, if I'm remembering correctly, which I apologize if I'm not, they actually collected insurance on the workers. So they actually got money, and nobody punished them for what happened. And it was
Which is
partially
incredible.
because they locked the doors because so that nobody would steal anything, so that they could not get out of doors. I think there was one staircase which became totally blocked. But if we look today, I mean, let's go to Flint, okay? Jackson, Flint. There's uh, some equivalents. Nobody in Flint is getting punished.
Punished.
In fact, they've been
Unbelievable.
exonerated, and this is what is going to happen. And
This is why we need laws. This is why Frances Perkins was so important. And we're very happy that unions seem to be coming back, because the union movement was very deliberately and violently destroyed, mostly in the 30s and 40s
even later,
and later. Yes.
under Reagan too.
Yeah, that's right. But things are starting to come back. I think people are starting to say, no more, no more. You can't treat me like this anymore. So there's reasons for hope, I think.
Yes, there's definitely reasons for hope. And I feel like one of the things that makes us work harder is, being reminded of these things in which something happened where it was either blatantly unfair or abusive or whatever you want, however you want to look at it. But it reminds us how much power those of us who have even little bits of power have to help make the change for folks. So one of the things I remember reading in the Wikipedia was, and I'm pretty sure, yeah, no, it's this one, that the guy who had the key to the stairwell vacated immediately, i.e., took himself and the key and left the building, but didn't unlock the door, right? Like, the thing that he could have done, which would have, they said, pretty much probably saved everybody. right? Like, so just, yeah, it's just a way of being in the world, which isn't taking the responsibility or, using your power wisely or with care.
Really, right? And why I think this was not the Triangle Factory fire was not arson is because at least one of the owners and maybe both were there and they got out through the roof. They got out. They saved themselves. So they were there. I don't think they would have set fire had they been in danger. They probably just would not have been there at that point. So I go back to it was probably just a cigarette, as they say, thrown into some rags, but that was that.
And here's something else is that, okay, this was
11.
1911 in New York City. Go to a third world country these days, let's say Pakistan or some other, Bangladesh, for instance,
Yes,
and
that's where that happened.
you have these factories, which are basically what the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory was in 1911. And every now and then we hear of fires or collapses and workers being killed. And, I connect that back to what we're all wearing. Who made this shirt that I'm wearing? Who made these pants? And we can go to various chain stores and buy them for a few bucks. But do we think about what is behind all this?
Right.
And the fact that somebody might have gotten paid a couple of dollars a day
If they're lucky.
to make this T-shirt?
Right.
I don't think this one, because I'm going to show you this one. I don't look. There he is, Joe Hill.
Joe Hill.
That's great. Wait, I'm gonna get myself off spotlight. Can you show it again so you'll be big?
Joe Hill.
That's great. That's so great. So I'm not sure if you guys have any Joe Hill songs, but maybe we're gonna have you back for something like that too. I know there's the famous Joe Hill song that we've actually, I think, had in here. So it's, the idea of the shirt that we're wearing at this moment, it's just another reminder of all of the things that we have the luxury of taking for granted and how every time we do it, we take something for granted. We don't think about the backstory. It's just us living in a state of also not helping by not thinking. So it's so simple in some ways, and it's also in some ways very overwhelming, right? To think about, to start to go through those steps. And, for everybody in this room, I know we talk about this like sort of one day at a time, to do what you can every day and kind of never give up the fight. And I would say, so we're sort of rolling towards 12:30, or actually it is 12:30, and I don't want to end yet, but we do have to end at some point. So I want to switch quickly to the idea of you, Barbara and Graham, and your radio show. Because we've been here talking in depth about issues and about history. And of course, you're the exact right people to be doing that with, because it is, in fact, what you do. Can you tell us about the radio show?
Sure. It's a community radio station that was founded in the early 2000s.
Around 2004, 2005.
And so we joined right away. And it's a station where anybody can have a show, really. There are certain things they can't do and say, but that's not too many. And we have a lot of very eclectic shows. And we've kind of come back from the pandemic when we didn't have to close down because we had automatic transmission of music, but nobody was there. There was no actual shows. And so now we're really coming back a lot from that. And our show is called Common Sense Songs, and that's named after the pamphlet Common Sense by Thomas Paine, which had a large part to do with the American Revolution.
There he is,
people.
on the door.
Yeah, well, they can't see that either right now. But so he's another one of our heroes.
Yeah.
For sure. We tend to have heroes and sheroes, people that have done things that we're talking about, like you were saying,
Actually,
Joe.
I would say something, Joe, if you're really interested. Maybe next January.
Keep talking.
Maybe next January is Thomas Paine's birthday, and we definitely have some Thomas Paine songs.
Okay, we're in. We're that's a yes.
Okay, great.
So tell us a little bit more about the show. What's coming up? What do you do?
Well, I said it's Common Sense Songs, Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. And it's the general themes of the show is social justice, not entirely, but largely. And this coming Wednesday, we will be featuring an interview with, what's her name?
Oh, I think her name is Joe.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
Joe Rassi.
Yeah.
Wednesday, September 7th, starting at 8.
Yeah.
A very nice interview, Joe, if I do say so myself.
This is something that was recorded a week or so ago. So, um, and so that will be coming on. I haven't quite, I have not quite figured out the entire show yet, but I'm thinking what I will do is feature some of the artists who have been on the Daily Antidote and maybe some of the songs they've done
That's great.
and expand it that way. So that's then. The
Love it.
following week, I will be talking with John Dillon, who's just put out a recording chronicling his recovery from addiction. September is I'm trying to what is National Addiction Recovery Month, something like that. So John has just put this out, chronicling his own path, and so we'll be talking to John about that, and that's the following week. Beyond that, I don't know. I tell you actually
Always something interesting.
what
though.
tends to happen is I will plan something and I've got all these ideas, and then Wednesday rolls around and something hits the news and I say, oh, and so then I rethink it.
But also
So that
we tend to look at historical
Yes,
things, and that we base a lot of our stuff on things historically.
So I think that's what happened to the show or the interview that you did with me, right? Is that you were going to air it last Wednesday, but then something happened and you switched to some other. Yeah, I
right.
love that. I think that's amazing.
But you will be on this week, okay?
Yes, that's for sure.
Well, unless, yeah.
No, unless it's September 7th. 'Cause we waited a long time for this interview. So.
Yeah. So and the link, I don't know, is the link in the chat?
The links are in the chat for everything having to do with you and beyond. So we have your radio show in the Common Sense website, and we have the WBCR. And tell me also, Graham, you mentioned another link that Erin's putting in. It began with an S.
Spinitron.
Spinitron, SPINITRON.
I think she put it in the chat.
Great.
And what that does is it makes the show available for 2 weeks after broadcast. Oh, I will also say the show gets repeated Friday afternoons 3 to 5
Right. So
on the radio station. So you have two opportunities
to hear Joe.
to hear during the week, and then for 2 weeks afterwards, the whole thing is available on this Spinitron link.
That is so great. Thank you so much. So it was such an amazing interview, I have to say, because kind of like what you see happening here, where we're like, oh, and this, oh, and this, oh, and this. That's exactly what the interview was like. And I hope that you guys really will come back into the room again, because you're just a fountain of knowledge and of amazing music, which brings me to my next point, which is, can we please sing that whole song again? Unless you have anything else you want to say quickly.
Not really. I think
All
we
right.
more or less said it. So yes, and I was very happy to see people watching them sing along with us. So I love that. That's really great.
Okay,
So
here's to Frances Perkins.
no.
It was the Great Depression, a letter was sent to Frances Perkins to join the government. She gave Roosevelt a list of things she wanted done. He agreed, and the seeds of the New Deal were sown. So here's to Frances Perkins, standing tall among the men. We may never see the likes of her again. At the Triangle Factory fire, she watched women leap, saw their crumpled bodies lying broken in the street. She knew that this injustice must be addressed. She worked to change the laws to protect the dispossessed. So here's to Frances Perkins, standing tall among the men. We may never see the likes of her again. First woman in the cabinet, she made history. She blazed a trail, left an enduring legacy. Unemployment insurance, social security, fair labor standards, she fought for you and me. So here's to Frances Perkins, standing tall among the men. We may never see the likes of her again. Now we've been living through another catastrophe, with long food bank lines, millions in misery. Though troubles may surround us, we will find a way. Frances, how your light still shines on us today. So here's to Frances Perkins, standing tall among the men. We may never see the likes of her again. So thank you, Frances Perkins, steadfast to the end. You will be remembered as the workers' friend. You will be remembered as the workers' friend. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Barbara and Graham. That was absolutely lovely. Let's give it up, please, so that they can see how much we loved today. Day 880. See, everybody put their signs down. I don't remember anymore. 882, maybe I said. I don't even know. Look, 800. Yes, 882. Thank you, Christiana. Thank you, Carolyn. The perfect song for day 882, and it sounds like we've got more perfect songs coming from you in the future. Love having new friends. So much fun. All right, I am going to say goodbye to everybody out there on Facebook Live. Please help me out, gang. Ciao, ciao, Facebook Live. See you tomorrow.